Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. It was a packed weekend of motorsport all over the world. It was, of course, Vegas, baby. And we'll come on to that, the highs and the lows of Las Vegas in the Formula One. There's MotoGP. There were highs and lows and laughter and tears in that as well. We'll come on to MotoGP. WRC in Japan. It was a good weekend for the home manufacturer. Home team. And we had a British winner in Macau. So that's all to look forward to. And then we got some exciting news in the coming ups.
Yeah. I haven't got that. There's a Grand Prix coming up, but
something far more exciting than a Grand Prix.
Okay.
Right. But let's kick off with Las Vegas because it was one of the most unusual sporting events ever for that type of money to be
incredible. I mean, a week ago, I said I hope to be a failure. I said I hope to be a failure last week, because I don't like all this money being spent at, the expense of not going to Spa and not going to wherever, French Grand Prix and those traditional dates, thanks to all this money being spent on being the show being more important. So I hoped it would fall flat on his face. But it looked like it would with the manhole cover in practice one, but it ended up being a fantastically entertaining race. But I would go back over the weekend. There was so much going on. I was loving Max. So Max, my new hero, because Max was saying what I say.
I knew it. Yeah, he was echoing your words. I think he must have listened to your podcast.
If you want to go to a show, you can go to a Ibiza and get pissed, But he just loves going to a race where it's a track, which is Spa and Silverstone and others. There's a crowd there, and it's a proper racing circuit. And for traditional motorists and so many that follow Twitter, we're all the same. We don't want all this razzmatazz. We just want a good race with tickets we can afford to go and watch the flipping races. This is the trouble. The traditional enthusiast won't be able to afford to go and watch his sport, whereas all the influencers, you see, they go. Her Twitter tag was a Las Vegas. She seemed to be a Las Vegas host, sort of Twitter influencer, because she was raging about the first night when the manhole cover meant they didn't get to watch anything. She said, "We're all getting drunk and we're having great fun, but we're not going to see the race." She kept on going on about this on Friday. We're not going to see the race. We're going home without a race. And that is how much half the people there knew about what they were going to see.
Which, of course, it wasn't a race. It was free practice one. It was literally, it was just a practice session, which lasted a whole 9 minutes.
But it looked a dull circuit. It looked a very simple circuit, which Max said. We said when I did the preview last week, we said it looks a very simple circuit. Just a few slow corners, lots of straights. It turned out to be a lot of slow corners and lots of straights. But there was always this lack of knowledge of the tyres, how they'd last, the temperature they made a fuss about. In the end, it turned out the temperature wasn't a problem at all. The tyres were, and the grip of the surface turned out to be the biggest surprise, really. It was a very low grip surface.
Well, absolutely. Let's get on to that a little bit. Let's just talk a little bit about that free practice session, because I think a couple of things came out of that were quite interesting. One, you said about the locals that didn't really understand it was we're there for the race. We're not there for the razzmatazz. And Max summed that up beautifully, I have to say, all weekend. But then F1, they came out with a statement, a very informative statement. They didn't even say sorry to these people. And these people
they've lost them $200 in franchise voucher just to buy a
guys. So there's a class action.
I've flown in from New York for this one-day trip just to watch FP1. I can't afford day two, but I can afford day one, which would probably still cost $1,000 plus a flight. And the manhole cover exploded, and then the security kicked them all out of their seats. And FP1 started at 2 a.m. in the end. Unbelievable how late it was. They must have been so exhausted on different time zones. I know your mate Karan Chanduk said that he'd been up for 25 hours straight or something. It was quite incredible. But the thing I want to draw your attention to, tell me I'm wrong here. We normally see eye to eye, but how
did Carlos Sainz and Ocon get penalised for the track being faulty?
No, I've been raging.
Possible?
I've been raging about it. I mean, everybody in the paddock, apart from maybe Red Bull and Mercedes, whoever was.
No, even Red Bull said. I'm sure I read somewhere or saw somewhere that Red Bull said. Max definitely said. Okay. It was an awful. Yeah, decision.
Max did. But I think Mercedes must have been the one, because Mercedes are fighting with Ferrari for second in the constructors, aren't they? Which is a lot of money.
But hang on, it has
to be Mercedes. Everyone's sort of pointing at Mercedes.
At some point, you've just got to have a bit of etiquette, and you've got to remember that.
I know. Yeah, but no official ever said we couldn't get the signature of all the teams. That was never said in any official statement. They didn't ever say we could have got rid of the penalty if all the teams had signed. I never even saw that as an option, to be honest.
No, I didn't either. But
the stewards just said there's nowhere in the rule book.
Ridiculous decision ever. The racetrack was faulty, and these guys getting penalised, massively penalised. And Carlos, bless him, because he said, "I'm in a very bad mood," but he's just so chipper all the time. He's got this lovely smile. I
mean, someone started to say, "Well, then if someone takes you out, in qualifying,
that's ridiculous."
I know. No, you when you enter a race, you accept that idiots might hit you and cause you damage. That is one part you do accept. Yeah. You don't accept being attacked by the track and costing you a monocoque and a battery pack and a grid position. And
it's not. Forget the money. It's the grid position, and it ruined his weekend. And a track
it would have been a Ferrari. Would have been a Ferrari 1-2. It would have been a Ferrari, front row.
We'll come on to that. It's certainly in the front row. Yes, it would, but not in the race. But the track is always going to attack you. The track's going to attack you if you hit the sausage curbs too hard. If you hit the rumble curbs too hard.
Yeah, but they're fixed.
Exactly.
That's for you.
Exactly.
They're there. Should have been the risk.
There should have been some common sense in that. So indeed, it would have been a Ferrari 1-2. Brilliant qualifying, and it made it exciting because you thought, wow, maybe Max isn't on it, but you just know every start he always seems to get in the front from the start. But the qualifying was
qualifying with a curveball straight away in qualifying. This track and this tyres and the two McLarens out in Q1.
I know.
But they didn't run a second set of tyres. Everybody else put on a second set of tyres.
Taking a chance, yeah.
Take the show. They were both out for that race. In Q2, we lost Checo because they put him in the garage. It was sick. Everybody knows tracks evolve. All that fuss of them queuing up on the last lap, they all go out of the garage, don't they, with 1.5 minutes left, because they all want to go out on the tracks at its best. So you've had this farce of cars queuing up to qualify, and they put Checo in the garage 6 minutes before the end.
Now, if you think that's a farce, by the way, listeners, wait until we come on to Two Wheels about some queuing up in a moment.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was horrendous.
But you won't believe.
Yes, and also Lewis went out. Lewis just had a bad lap. And this is the trouble, unless you've got a good lap, lots of traffic around. We had Ocon getting put out by Max's move, which was a little bit of an old Max tantrum. But I think in this case, he was justified because they'd all been, there was about 4 or 5 car pack, wasn't it, queuing up. And Ocon, I think, was sort of at the front of them. No, Ocon wasn't.
Ocon did
Max
was. Ocon did to Max what Max then did to then Max did to Ocon. But it's just silly.
So, I know, but
I
do lost Lewis.
I do like sorry, Tim. I was just going to say I do like the fact that Max just wants to get on with it all the time. He just wants to get on with it. He doesn't want to do that queuing. He just wants to let me through. I'm going to go and do my lap. And you can, if you want to slipstream, whatever you want to do, you do that behind me. I'm going to do my lap. So I do quite like that.
And Max might have got a better lap. As it was, we never really saw Max's speed because of that Ocon incident. His second run, he didn't go quicker. And he was nearly 0.4 slower than Pole, which is quite a lot. And only 800ths quicker than George in fourth in the McLaren. And then there's Williams. There's wonderful Williams' happy story in qualifying, not so much in the race when it disappeared, but,
it's still not bad.
6th and 7th, Logan Sargent with a huge smile on his face. He's obviously, they say he's driving next year, you don't know. They say he's a paid driver, that he hasn't brought any money, which you don't know. It's all quite surprising in this world.
No way.
And Aston Martin's 10th and 19th. So old Stroll, he's used to sack him, and yet later there was a bit of a stroll. But so the Astons were in it. So there's a lot of curveballs in qualifying. Then we waited for the race, The other thing actually we forget the race is that once you start watching them on the track, you could have been anywhere. Because once the cameras are following the cars racing, all you saw is fences and walls. And you didn't see any of the great backdrop, and so it could have been any street circuit. Singapore,
I was trying to remember what Singapore Azerbaijan and places like that were like? Because are they? It looked like a prison. It looked really. I don't know. I can't explain it.
Singapore's similar, I think. The
guess
thing
it's the
about
same.
Singapore, every time I watch FP1 in Singapore, the daylight,
Yeah.
I think it looks much, much better. You can see
It's
the
pretty.
sea, you can see the famous
Yeah, but
buildings.
it's the heat, isn't it? It dies off a little bit in the evening, I guess. So it's just too hot in the day. Not much.
But then off the race, the Max attack was back. Turn one.
Well, was it ever
crazy
away?
short run? It was. I said into it. Someone was going to go off, and the front two. I mean, Charles, let him. Kept on going wider and wider. And the point. This is where it's slightly the boys. I mean, luckily he got a penalty, but it was only the pace car had been out, hadn't it? There was ages before they finally
It's
said,
like 15
5
minutes.
seconds.
It was ridiculous time. Make a decision.
Yeah, I mean, if you hadn't got a penalty, then we would have been having you would have been slagging off Max. Yerry would have been slagging you off. The world would have gone.
See, I disagree. I don't think it was a penalty, and that shows what I know. Because he had the move time. He was down the inside of Charles.
He was
had
off
the line.
the road.
Okay, so he pushed him off, but he had the move.
No. So if you remove Leclerc from the equation, right? He was four wheels off track, completing an overtaking manoeuvre,
and that is a.
He didn't stay on the track.
I stand corrected. You're right. It's because of that reason.
The point is, they've got to move, which IndyCar do quite well, to an instant. There's got to be someone half around the first lap says, "Give it back." Because if you wait too long and someone's dropped to third place or fourth place, you can't give it back then because you've got 2 cars between. The 5-second penalty isn't a strong enough thing in my mind because you can quickly work it out. So many, causing a collision.
Of course it's not, especially with Max Verstappen. He's won many races over 30 seconds. Many. But
also to the crowd, you can't see the 5 seconds. You don't know whether they're going to stop in the pits. You might not even know that as a casual spectator. So you're watching a race and you suddenly say, well, why has he stopped in the pits for long? So anyway, it's got to be give the place back now. One person has to make that decision.
Agree.
2 or 3 maybe, but they've got to look at each other in the box and say 3 votes, 3 wise men, racing drivers preferably.
Or ladies or whoever.
It's got to be give the place back. But it did make the race more exciting. So the 5 seconds, because, Charles then caught Max and Max's tyres went off and we thought this is all pretty exciting now. And then Max had the 5 seconds. But of course, we haven't got past the first corner of the story with Alonso coming down the inside. There's Fernando Alonso, the wisest man in the world, spinning into all the out, causing complete chaos. Looking like it was going to ruin Perez's. Perez was involved, weren't he? And Carlos, they all got bent noses and stuff, and so we all thought. And
Lewis got hit at the back as well.
But one Aston's disaster was one the other Aston's joy, because Lance has always been good on first laps. I remember all the way through his career, he's always moved up 2 or 3 places. He is good on opening laps. It's just balls he's got, or I don't know. But it's weird sometimes. He does, and he has races in the rain, doesn't he? When he leads a Grand Prix, he's this weird character. Anyway. He went from 19th to something like 9th because he kept tight inside line, but everybody else was clattering off. And so Lance was 9th, and we thought, well, he'll soon get overtaken and pushed back. And of course, he ended the day 5th place overall after another really accomplished drive. So, and same with Checo in a way. We're talking about 2 drivers we've been saying, get rid of him. Checo's got to go. Come on, he's useless. He's got to go. And same with Lance, who was like, oh, come on, daddy's boy. The last 2 Grand Prix, he's looked like a Grand Prix driver. So, I mean, so much was going on.
I'm more vocal about getting rid of Perez, Checo, than I am about Lance, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, but except he got overtaken on the last lap. So
again, by however many thousands.
And then, of course, the annoying thing with that first, they had a virtual safety car, didn't they? And then all of a sudden they made it a safety car. They're right at the end, which they didn't really need to do, but they did. I was thinking through the race, it was more and more like the Americans like it. It's more like an IndyCar race.
It was for 2 different reasons. That's why. Yellows. So within 4 minutes, you had both safety car and virtual, but there were 2 different incidents. One was to remove debris, and one was about Lando, when Lando, of course...
didn't we have a full safety car in the first one then? No, just stayed local. Okay.
Yeah,
Lando's shunt. I mean, that was a scary shunt.
He was lucky. 180, I think, miles an hour.
Yeah, this is the trouble. If you lose control at high speed in those devices, he caught the first one, but it's so hard to catch those cars. They can't get any slip out. And apparently it was a bump with cold tyres. So coldish tyres, a bump. So McLaren have already said that bump must be flattened out for next year. We can't have any bumps in our tracks at all.
I've been there, coldest tyres, a bump.
Oh dear. So that was a disaster for McLaren. We had a pretty bad weekend because Piastri didn't add out of Q1. Piastri, well, that's because they didn't go for the second set of tyres. Yeah, we've done that. Yeah, they didn't go for the second set of tyres. But then Piastri had this amazing drive back. And when we had this Max catching Charles, we had Oscar. No, Oscar was ahead of Max at that stage. It was Max catching Perez, wasn't it?
Because he didn't pit.
Charles catching Perez. And then Piastri was catching them both.
Yeah.
So it's a shame that McLaren didn't put through quali, because they obviously had a quick car. Almost a shame for Mercedes, because George was heading for maybe third place until he had this clash with Max. So in fact, it was a brilliant race just between Red Bull and Ferrari. But pace-wise, we could have had McLaren and Mercedes in, like an 8-car battle for the lead. There was so much going on that was good.
Yes, but you wonder how much is manipulated a little bit in terms of the safety car, because I know it certainly ruined Charles's race.
Yeah, it helped some. It did. There was a lot of. So that is the trouble with virtual safety cars. I'd shut the pits. Virtual safety car, close the body. Don't let them in. Maybe a full safety car you can, but if it's a virtual safety car, don't let anyone, because it does give unfair advantage to some, and so some got pluses and some got minuses. And of course, because so much was going on, you couldn't really read the race, could you? Someone's changing tyres, they were backing up the field. Whereas, of course, towards the end, we had this amazing. We had Albon, the Williams, sadly going backwards fast, very sadly. I mean, the tyres
and Sargent as well.
Yeah, both went back. But for a while, we had Albon leading a wonderful DRS train of about 10 cars. So it was quite a spectacle going. Then, of course, up front, we had this wonderful battle between the Ferrari and the Red Bull. Of course, Max coming through from his problems and being assaulted by... I've written down here that George was looking good, but then unfortunately he wasn't looking. When he admits he just had no idea Max was there, just because they haven't got this peripheral vision. Every time we've had a crash, beginning of Brazil, when we talked about Magnussen moving over, you don't know someone's there. You can't look all that time.
It's a hell of a wallop, and Max was lucky still to want to win, and he was so chilled about it as well. He said, "I don't think George saw me there."
Yeah,
I know. That was the mature Max. It really was. He almost as if he's thinking, "I'm not going to win this race. I don't really care about this race." In a way that if he doesn't win it, he can be quite rude, continue to be rude about it. But
I know.
Yeah,
no, Max was on full.
Very mature about that.
I've raced in the past in some GTs where drivers have this huge sort of concave mirror.
They do that in the K-Terms,
which looks, yeah. So I'm thinking the halo, front of halo.
No, you won't see over. You won't see over. The halo is lower than the air scoop behind you. The air scoop and everything behind you, it's the halo's low. Yeah, good idea, but no.
Cross that off my list of clever.
But your other idea about the halo, about having drivers' initials on there, I think.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Do you jump on board a Red Bull?
Yeah,
and they both got silly helmets. So until you've learnt whose silly helmet is whose, well, who are we on board with? Just put those 3 little letters. They've got those silly little letters, haven't they? Just put their 3 letters.
It is quite funny because you've done your whole career with the same livery on your helmet, and most people of your era would, and they change it every bloody race now.
Oh no, I know. Then the Alpines had fun. They were entertaining for a while, weren't they? Ocon catching Gasly.
Fair play to Ocon. Fair play. Yeah.
He came from, where did he qualify? He was right at the back, wasn't he? Because he missed on Q2, so that was quite entertaining. Stroll again 5th, Ocon 4th. And the Piastri got a point in the end. The speed of the McLaren was there. But it's all made because it's a simple track. So a simple track means the very, very good driver is close to the brilliant driver. The brilliant driver can't pull half a second a lap as easily as on a busier circuit. So simple circuit, low grip, made the Grand Prix.
I know Charles and Checo were fighting each other, which always slows you down. But Max just pulled out 3 and a bit seconds within a couple of laps, maybe 3 laps. Just absolutely pulled out. And then, fair play to him, they said, can you give Checo a bit of stay 2.5 seconds. He went about 2 seconds, try and give him the slipstream, but it was all in vain in the end. But,
but I know that was all a bit of a show. But surely go back to 0.9 seconds and give Perez DRS.
But then don't you open yourself up for...
You've got 2 laps to go. 2 laps to go.
Yeah.
I mean, when Carlos won, where did he win when he was using the DRS to back him up?
Yeah,
Singapore. Did he win Singapore? He won Singapore. And he deliberately was backing them up, keeping them within a second. So he could have told Max to back right back to give him DRS. It would have been. I know it would have been tricky, and Max wouldn't have agreed anyway. Let's face it.
I think that.
But then then we had the last lap, of course. With the comeback with the Ferrari. That was just magic. Whenever we had a proper race, okay, it's DRS, so it's not proper racing, but it's slipstream. It's not DRS. It's in my head now. It's just had a good slipstream, as you would have in a Caterham or a Formula Ford, and did this overtake. But that was the great thing about the low grip. You could outbrake someone by 5 meters or 3 meters because the braking distance was longer. It was a hazardous thing. And so, the outbreaks were coming from further back and they were making overtakes. So
there were some fantastic overtakes. Well, none better than Charles's on the last lap.
Get that tarmac. Any circuit that needs resurfacing, get the Las Vegas diet, whatever menu for tarmac, and put it on everywhere.
It's not negative that there was low grip. It's not negative that they didn't they had to brake early. It's positive. These are the best drivers in the world. Put them to the test. If they got cold tires, so what? It ended up being a very entertaining.
Very entertaining. Much as I hate having to admit it.
So
but still, some of the razzmatazz. Have you seen that the announcer with Perez? Have you seen it on Twitter? Have you seen it? Bloke this, and he moves into Checo's face. Checo Perez. And he goes up to about an inch of Perez's face. And poor Checo. He said, "What am I supposed to do now?" He was trying to say, "Oh, razzmatazz." I didn't watch any of it. I didn't watch any of the grid walk or anything. Nothing.
Our mate Joe Achilles said to me, I know, I saw it on his Instagram, and he said, "Oh, Checo doesn't look very happy." I said, "Trust me, he would have looked more unhappy on a checkered flag than he did at because that was that's a gutter."
Yeah, but it was a 9 out of 10 entertaining motor race.
Good.
I mean,
what do you think? Let us know below. What do you think? Was it rubbish or was it a 9 out of 10? Let us know below. There's plenty of overtaking, which is that always makes it exciting, especially for a street circuit. But it is a bit it is a bit over the top for me. I'll be honest. I love Vegas. I love going there, but it was just a bit over the top.
Well, like I said, once you're watching the race, you could have been anywhere, any street circuit, because you occasionally saw that globe thing, and that was about it. And they put the checkered flag out. I did see that. They went for the wide shot with a checkered flag on the dome thing before the race had finished.
I think they're saying last lap. I think they're
so desperate. That's not a last lap, is it, with the checkered flags out? They could have waited another 30 seconds to use their wonderful checkered flag.
What flag is it to tell you it's the last lap, Mr. Needell?
Do we have one in England?
No, it just says last lap.
We don't have one.
Yeah, it's last lap board, doesn't it?
Yeah, have a white flag in NASCAR.
Good. Okay, let's
MotoGP.
And Red Bull, of course, have wrapped up 1-2 now because Lewis is you can't do that. So there we go. MotoGP. There was some shenanigans going on MotoGP.
Oh, well, Moto3 was the one. Not happy. MotoGP had the most wonderful happy tale. Moto3 had the very controversially upsetting ending. So they went to Qatar, which is this stupid circuit. Actually, it's better for bikes.
It's all right for bikes, actually.
Yeah. They can overtake at a few corners during the fiddly bits out the back, which, of course, the Formula 1 cars can't, apart from maybe one. But it's always been a Ducati track, because it's got this huge long straight, which has always suited Ducatis. And the top 6 on the grid were all Ducatis. And, of course, the championship battle is between the factory Ducati of Pecco Bagnaia and the satellite Ducati of Gresini Jorge Martin. But these satellites, there's 3 major satellite teams. And 1 minute it seems the Gressinis are doing well, which I have with Martin. And then the VR46 Valentino Rossi's have been doing well. But the last couple of Grand Prix, it's been the Gressini mob of Alex Marquez and this Italian, he's called Digi, but he's Fabio Di Giannantonio.
Giannantonio. Is it?
So this week, Giannantonio, I couldn't read my own writing. But so this week, it seems the last 2 races, the Gressinis have been the best satellites. But the grid lined up really interesting. We had a Luca Marini on a a Rossi satellite was on pole. Then Fabio Di Giannantonio was second on the Gresini. And Alex Marquez, another Gresini, was on the front row. The second row is Bagnaia alongside Martin.
Why is it always Spanish and Italians?
I don't know. They're good.
They're good.
Anyway, the sprint race, Martin did what he does, which is win sprint races. So he came through from fifth on the grid, in fact, to win the sprint race, chased home by Digi. Digi had a good second place. But Bagnaia was down in fifth. So the championship closed because Bagnaia's had this lead he's been slowly getting eased away from. So that was the sprint on the first day. Now, the Grand Prix was a fascinating. This was when the tears came at the end. I'm sure Susie would have been in floods. We've had this problem. They complain in Qatar because the straight's got no rubber down on it, and it's dust and desert, and it's dirty and horrible. But they've been spinning the wheels on the start line, and so actually spinning up the rear, so getting a tank slapper off the line. Martin did exactly that at the Grand Prix start. Almost dropped it in front of a whole pack of bikes. Because they've got this launch control now. They've got this wide drop.
Crazy. It all drops down and drags away.
You never see a single wheelie. You think of a motorbike.
Unbelievable.
You try a quick start on a road bike and the front wheel's up in the air. But the things are just held down. So you've got this amazing grip. But of course, if you spin the wheel like a car, it's almost like a car spinning its wheels, because he virtually fell off nearly and dropped back to 9th or 10th. And the whole race, they reckon his tyre might have turned on the rim. Which happens in Formula One as well, slightly. So he had a miserable race. He ended up about 11th or 10th. But Bagnaia went out front. There was the longest, the Grand Prix driver, the current champion. But he had this Digi boy on his tail. The two of them pulled away. Now, poor old Digi's out of his ride because Marc Marquez is leaving Honda and taking his place at Gresini alongside his brother Alex. It's the two Marquezes. So Digi's got no drive for next year. There's only about one seat left because apparently the pole sitter, Marini, who is actually, I didn't know this until recently, he's Rossi's stepbrother, same mother, different father, which I didn't know that until I read last week. So Luca Marini is apparently going to Honda, the Honda seat that Marquez has left, to go to take the Gresini seat. Which means that Digi was getting kicked out. He's had a bit of a bad year and a half, but he's suddenly come good towards the end of the year. So poor old Digi's got no ride. I don't think there's a seat left unless something big happens. So Digi's never won a MotoGP Grand Prix. He was second he was second in last weekend as well. He's on the podium, obviously came second in the sprint race. So he tracks Pecca down. The two of them pull away, and for about 15 laps, he's on his rear tyre. And the commentators say, well, he's a Ducati rider, and does he want to take points off of the Ducati championship leader, the factory rider? And they're all saying, go on, Digi, you've got nothing to lose. Anyway, Julie took the lead with about 3 laps to go. And actually, Pecca tried to retake him. He got in the toe down the huge long straight and actually outbraked himself and just missed the back of Digi's rear tyre by about half an inch and speared off down the escape onto the runoff area. Still kept his second place. So Digi then had 2 laps of unattacked, just cruised to a win, and they ended up slowing down up. He was in tears and everything else. And it was wonderful emotion, absolutely wonderful that this kid, he's not a kid, I mean, he's a mid-20s, but with no ride next year. What are you waving? Said, you want something? He's like a kid in the back of class, put your hand up in the air.
I'm listening to you.
Sorry, you interrupt. You're not. You're
my
interrupting. I can see you in the back of my peripheral.
And it's just fallen down on top of me. So he needs to put on the table and do it.
It was just an emotional part of MotoGP.
It was very emotional.
You ruined.
It's a lovely time.
So, and he's the 8th different winner. I think of Formula One, 8th different MotoGP winner this year. But Bagnaia's now got a big championship league going to the final round of Valencia next weekend. So he's pretty much won the championship. Of course, Moto2, another reasonable race, but slightly pedestrian. Pedro Costa's already won that, and I think he was too bothered to finish 8th. But
I just thought he'd do so much better this year. Costa, I thought he would be really
won the
up
championship.
There.
He won the championship.
Sorry, not this year. Qatar.
Oh, in Qatar, yeah, but he probably wasn't bothered.
Yeah, true.
But out front, this is another part of this: who's going to sit where on the bikes this year? Which probably upset Digi, because Fermin Aldeguer he's third on the trot. He's chasing Jake Dixon for third in the championship. Jake finished 5th. But he's still just behind Jake with 1 round to go. But he's suddenly come on to massive form. He's young. And apparently he's going to take the the place. Where's he taking? He's going to the Rossi. Marini's going to Honda, leaving VR46.
Yep.
So apparently, Aldegar has pretty much got the contract to take the VR46 drive in the satellite Ducati. But everyone's pointing at Digi, saying, "Well, how about Digi? Hold on a minute. Leave Aldegar down in Moto2 for another year. Put Digi in there." But I don't think Digi's going to get it. So this could be. I mean, once you're out of MotoGP, there was commentators were saying you don't often get a second shot. So
wow, what a shame!
Super tears. Everyone's loving it. Everyone loves him. So yeah.
So do you think he will? I mean, is there room for another satellite team, or it's just
no? The bikes are allocated. They can only have so many. They can't afford another team. So they've had trouble. Pedro Costa had trouble getting a Costa into a KTM because they had to get another satellite bike.
So where is he? Where is he in the championship? I know there's another race.
Well, Digi.
Yeah. Do you know?
Well, Digi. No, he's quite well. He had a bad first half of the season. Okay. I don't know where he's in the points, but he's not up there at all in the points. But he's just suddenly come to form. But Grassini have come to form. Because Alex Marquez had a win. So the Grassini have suddenly come to form, which has helped Digi. So congratulations to Fabio Di Gianantonio for his very first MotoGP. There will be partying. Expect Susie will be out there joining the party. I'm sure she likes a good party. So Moto2 easily won by Aldegar. Quite a good battle for second. I forget who with. Didn't write it down. And then we come to Moto3.
Talk about slipstreams. Talk about waiting.
It was a wonderful race. It was a wonderful, wonderful race. These kids go round on these bikes. I mean, as a pack of like 20, Dennis Ontube jumped the start. It was on pole, I think. And so that you get two of these long loops you have to do. So you have to go for one corner, you have to make a long loop, come back on it. You lose 10 places. And it's a double, for jumping a start, you get a double long loop. And to say how much the toe works, he did his two double lock. He went from first to 15th, got to about 5th, went back to 15th, and finished third or second, I think, in the end. Wow. He was second or third. So it's this massive pack, and they're all playing the game and making space and moving up and down. And we're basically down to the two championship leaders: Macia, the Spanish guy, on a Honda, and then the Japanese guy on the not a KTM. What's the other word they use? I haven't written it down. Long word. So those two are virtually. There was still a Colombian, David Alonso could have won it, and Daniel Holgado could have won it. It was basically it's down to the two, Asaya and Sasaki. And they're both playing the game. It's great race. It's wonderful. So close, diving, rubbing elbows. And all of a sudden, I think Sasaki was in the lead. Macia decides to block past him. So he came in way late and stood the bike, instead of turning into the corner, literally stood the bike back up, ran Sasaki off to the edge of the track. He lost 3 or 4 places, and Sasaki lost about 5 or 6 places. So they come back through again. Then they're back fighting again. It's the 2 for the championship. It's wonderful. And then he does it again. Once again, he got inside him, stood the bike up, and just ran him off the road. And everyone's going past. So after that, the stewards gave him a warning, a rider's warning. But it should have been the first one.
Yeah, of course
it was such an obvious.
Of course
foul.
He should. Absolutely, of course he should.
So
there's no place for it. There's no place for it in professional motorsport or in any motorsport.
Oh no, it's such a sour taste. All the commentators, they asked Susie and the other guy, did you enjoy the race? No. Because it got worse because Macia's teammate, who's only been in the ride for half a season, Adrian Fernandez, another Spanish kid, obviously a friend of Holmes, and this Leopard team, the 2 Hondas. Sasaki made a bit of a mistake and dropped from first to about 5th, and then Fernandez got a sniff of Sasaki and just did the same to him. So he's not in the championship. He's an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid. He's been in Moto3 for about 3 or 4 years and got nowhere. And he just dive-bombed him and stood him up twice in the last 2 laps and put Sasaki out of the championship. So Messiah won the championship. And at the end, they both run off at the first, and Fernandez is leaping and hugging him, and we're all wonderful. You're not wonderful. You're a pair of twats, in my book. And it just soured the whole race. You can't do that. It's such a shame, because it's been such a good year with so many amazing overtake manoeuvres and racing to be done by four times.
There's no place for it. like I said, not even in club racing. There's no place for it. People like that, you shouldn't be racing. You should you have a serious word with yourself.
Yeah. I don't know why Suzuki didn't knock him off.
But why did the stewards do something about it afterwards? I guess it's too late.
Well, no, the champion had the warning after seconds. He didn't do it again.
Yeah, but his teammate
comes along.
But penalise the team. I mean, do something. I mean, it's an awful way to lose.
You can't.
Awful way to win, awful way to lose. It's not.
So, and of course, now the championship's over and we haven't got a final round championship, and it's very sad.
Indeed.
So that was made a bitter, but that was the first race of the day. Of course, that should run first. So it was a shame. So talking of Japan, that should have a Moto3 champion, but they haven't now anymore. But not this year. We had the final round of the World Rally Show, which probably nobody knew was going on. They splashed that huge, horrendous rain. And the first day, they're all aquaplaning off and misting up cars they couldn't see. And from the end of day one, the rally was pretty much over. Well, day two it is, because they have a special stage on day one. And Kalle Rovanperä is already the champion. He was the first car out, so he was just moving rivers and floods. So he had a terrible first day, dropped to third. Elfyn Evans took to the lead. And there were huge gaps. Sebastian Ogier and another Toyota was having another outing. And the three of them just cruised to the end. They're about a minute between each one. There was no real drama going on. In fact, at the end of day two, the three Toyotas were leading. And in fourth, fifth, and sixth were WRC2 cars. The second division cars. Yeah, because all the others had aquaplaned off. And I think the more powerful cars with wider tyres were pretty a disadvantage to the less powerful cars with narrower tyres. So in the end, Octanek came through to finish fourth for Ford. And who came third? I think it was fifth. Anyway, it wasn't very exciting.
Yeah, it was nice to see Elfyn win, even if it was.
It's good for him. And he confirmed being second in the championship. So Thierry Neuville's third in the championship.
He's been the bridesmaid many times.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yet another one. So I still don't know what rally's going to do to make it more exciting or to get more cars out. I don't know.
Well, I don't know either, but surely the writing's on the wall for WRC. Manufacturers aren't particularly keen. It's not very good for spectators. Does it help develop the cars? Perhaps. If it does, then that's a good way.
Well, the hybrids, aren't they? Got the hybrids, which seem to go wrong. They seem to go wrong more in WRC than any other formula. They seem to. I didn't have my hybrid. I mean, drivers did have my hybrid. The hybrid wasn't working. So that's.
So where else?
Well, back out of the Far East, really. From Japan to Macau for this wonderful track.
We spoke about it
amazing
last
racing.
Week,
We're talking about how. The trouble is, every time I watch on television, I'm going through the S's where I jumped out of gear and kissed the curb, and I would have been a Macau Grand Prix winner on a list that's got Ayrton Senna on it. But the man joining the list this year was Luke Browning. This is the British kid. He was the Autosport winner last year ago. That's coming up soon, isn't it? The title winner. He's had a bit of a miserable year in Formula 3. Didn't really get going at the beginning of the year. I think he had a win right at the end of the season. But anyway, pole position. Won the qualifying race under huge pressure and won the Grand Prix under huge pressure, including a 1 hour wait for a restart after a red flag for Paul Aaron had this huge shunt and took the back of the gearbox off of his car and got a bit of fire in time. They had a 1 hour red flag. They had to come out and do it again. But in the end, it was more yellow flags. He actually won the Grand Prix under a safety car, which was a bit disappointing. But I don't think he was disappointed.
Was the restart from the grid, or was it a rolling start restart?
I didn't watch it. I think it was rolling start. I think.
Okay. Good
point. No, I don't think they've done the silly Formula One thing. No.
Because that's for me. That's crazy when they do when it's red flag and they go back to the grid formation. I don't know that.
But they're both of the British high-tech teams. The other driver in high-tech was another star. The qualifying race was this Irish kid, Alex Dunn. I think I raved about when he was Formula 4 2 years ago. He had a bad season in GB3.
Now that he's
we can look back. We look back. I was raving about Alex Dunn. We had a bit of an off season in GB3. But anyway, he qualified about fifth and finished second in the quali race. Amazing. His first ever Formula 3 race. Go from GB3 in British tracks to Macau. He was a teammate of Luke Browning. So high-tech obviously had a good car, but that's always the case. But they beat the Prema boys. I always like it. The Prema boys that are always the favourites get beaten. I've got some notes here. I got confused because I ran out of bits of paper.
I like Prema. The fact that they're good is a good thing.
Yep. Dennis Hauger, who was a Prema star back in, I think he won Formula 3 with Prema, and he's had 2 off years in Formula 2. Sort of came to Macau to try and rebuild his career somehow. I think he hasn't got a ride for next year in Formula 2. Norwegian guy. It looked like a real talent. But, you get in the wrong team and then things don't work.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, he came second for the Dutch team, MP Motorsport. And the first Prema in third place was Italian, very highly rated Italian Gabriele Mini, who was pushing Brownie all weekend, was on pole for a while. So lots of talent. It's funny how you get that mixture of talent trying to make the name get back again, goes to Macau. Dan Tickton went down there, had an awful time. He qualified about 9th or 10th, got taken out in the quali race by Yugo Chukwuwawa. You remember we talked about him in the Winter Series? He did well. Anyway, he tried to outbrake Tickton from miles back and took them both into the wall. So Tickton had to start the feature race at the back and finish about 14th, I think, somewhere down there. But a big shout out for Sophia Flörsch, who, of course, became famous, not as she'd want to, for flying through the air in Macau, that horrendous airborne accident where she went upside down into the press box and survived with only a minor-ish spinal injury, amazingly. But she got through to 11th. I think she qualified in the top 20. It's about 26 cars and a good run to finish 11th on a circuit that nearly killed her. So, as always, just what... It's always, I always say, motorsport's interesting. One car going through a corner looks exciting. In Macau, any car going through any corner looks exciting. So congratulate Luke Brown. So let's hope he has a much better year. I presume he's doing Formula 3 again and can do this result all year long next year.
Yeah, good for him. I've got a little tiny bit of news which it's just found quite mind-blowing. Is, in Formula 1 and many other races where they say that safety car's too slow, I can't keep my tires warm.
Yeah,
it was the Super Trofeo Lamborghini finale this weekend, and the fastest car all weekend, which I find hard to believe, was a safety car. It set the fastest lap for the safety car. They couldn't keep up with it.
What was it?
It was I think it was probably the same, but I don't even know what it was. But maybe it could have been the same, because you got some of the best drivers in the world. You got some amazing drivers driving in that. It was actually won by Glenn Mickey and Anthony McIntosh. So they're pro-ams. Exactly. They're the 2023 world champions, actually. But it reminded me of...
they couldn't keep up with the safety car.
No, it reminded me of the Ford KA. I went out under safety car because it's so wet, and I thought, bloody hell, this is on pace. This is race pace. You've got a real job to keep
There's
up.
Nothing worse than a driver that doesn't keep up with a safety car. God,
I didn't say I didn't keep up with
it.
I
know you didn't. The number of times in my racing career, I've been on the bumper, going alongside, they're leaving a 10-car gap and there's a restart coming up. What are some people in their heads?
No, I'm like you. I'm all over it. And speaking of all over it, I've packed my bags because next weekend...
What, you're racing this weekend?
Next weekend,
Abu Dhabi Grand Prix?
No, not quite Abu Dhabi. I go the opposite way, across the Atlantic to the Caribbean, to Bushy Park in Barbados with Caterham. There's about 30 Caterhams.
Once again, you appear to have done a deal that I am not involved with.
Well,
that's nice.
I'm in the car with Harvey Lawrence, who's a brilliant little driver. Came up from Academy. He did road sport last year. I think he's got the best looking car. Was
it a long distance race? The 2-driver race?
Yeah, there's sprint races and there's 2 endurance races as well. So I'm going to join him.
What cars? Academy cars?
So I'm going to be 270. Yeah. So
is that what you raced last? That's the road sports.
FH Halliday is my team with Harvey Lawrence, and that's what I raced road sport. But if 270 was the one that I would have gone to next if I stayed in. So yeah. So
how many cars are out there then?
About 30. Yeah.
Wow.
Of course, Joe and Mark are there. Fred's going as well. Charlie Lower. The usual suspects. And then you got the whole. I think you've got. Well, not think you got 270s, 310s, and 420s. But there's not many 420s out there. But yeah, so
they ship them all over. Are they floating?
They ship them all over beginning of November. Wow. Kirsty Durant and
has this been done before then or not? This is the first time.
They've been.
When is the racing? This weekend.
This weekend. So they've been to Spas. They've been to Spa. They've been to Zandvoort. They've been to various international circuits, but not quite as international as Bushy Park, Barbados. So I'm really excited to be going. It was touch and go, but literally booked my ticket yesterday and Yeah, looking forward to it.
We'll all be watching Abu Dhabi, that name that everybody hates.
Abu Dhabi, of course.
Abu Dhabi with Formula 2 cars. But it's the championship. Gosh, I didn't do any research.
That's nuts.
I know, because it's so long ago, the penultimate. Oh, God. Well, we just hope Ollie Behrman wins.
That's wrong.
Champion's already been decided, I think.
And if you wonder why I'm drinking red wine, it is Sunday evening for us. We normally record this sort of Monday lunchtime-ish, but it's Sunday evening because Tiff's out to... what are you doing tomorrow?
I'm filming a Ferrari 458.
Speciale?
For Kahuna, the online auction site. Dealer reassurance. Kahuna, the place to go. The motorbikes go to Valencia, the rubbish track. God, that's an awful track. It's just got runoff everywhere. There'll be track limits. It's a horrible, stupid circuit. They always end the World Championships. But MotoGP is pretty much done. Bagnaia should win unless he does something terrible. Acosta's already won it. And some little Spanish gits won the Moto3 already. And Australia, they got the final round of their supercars at Adelaide, that wonderful old Grand Prix track, which is always spectacular to watch. So
Chevy versus Ford, is it?
It's two Chevys. It's him against him and his teammate.
Okay. Good stuff.
I can't remember names.
Oh, you're not bad for 140.
102. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. You're not bad. So next week I'm going to be Barbados. So yeah, that'd be a nice. Are you coming home? Are you coming home on Monday to talk about? Well, I'll be doing this podcast to you on a beach somewhere. Well, I was due to come home, but Joe and Mark they took away my passport and they said you've got to stay for an extra couple of days. So Paddle Up Joe is kindly hosting me for an extra couple of days.
So in that case, I want you in a paddle boat with Paddle Up. You can do your podcast in a week from a paddle boat.
It sounds good. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next week. Somewhere from a boat or somewhere. There'll be the Caribbean anyway. See you.
Bye. Vegas, baby. Vegas.